I'm Joanna. I'm an occupational therapist, and in this video, we're going to talk about reasons why a child might not poop. If you have a child who won't poop, you know just how intense that struggle can be. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about 8 of the possible reasons why your child might not be pooping. Reasons 1 through 3 are probably fairly obvious, and it's likely you've already considered them, but they do bear mentioning. Reasons 4 through 8 are a little less obvious, maybe a little more nuanced, and hopefully it'll just give you a few more pieces of the puzzle as you're trying to sort out what's going on with your child's pooping habits. Also, the reason I'm making this video is because I have lived this life. Being an occupational therapist did not make me immune to having a child with pooping problems. I had such a hard time finding reliable resources that were actually helpful. And so my hope is that this video will help you as you're trying to untangle and sort out whatever's going on with your own kid. Without further ado, here are 8 reasons why your child might not be pooping. Reason number 1, and probably the first one that you're going to come across if you're talking to ChatGPT or doing a Google search, or even if you talk to your child's pediatrician, is diet related. Most of the time due to not enough fiber in the diet. Kids are tough. Kids are like little snack machines. If yours are like mine, they're like wood chippers with the crackers. Unfortunately, things like crackers and highly processed grain products can be really binding, and unfairly, some healthy foods can also be binding. Bananas can be binding, dairy products can be binding. Probably none of this is news to you if you're dealing with a child who has trouble pooping. Apples also, the pectin in apples can bulk in stool, but if you don't have enough water and other fiber in the diet, that can actually cause stools to get hard and kind of create like a snowball effect. So reason number 1, diet related, often having to do with fiber. So make sure you're getting lots of fruits and vegetables. You can look up the different kinds of fiber and how they affect the stool. Just make sure that there's a blend in your diet to keep things moving. Reason number 2 is dehydration. If you are increasing fiber and you're not increasing water, you're just gonna clog things up more. So you need to make sure that your kid is getting a lot of fluids. Water's ideal. I know a lot of kids don't want to drink water, so there's a lot of ways that you can kind of play with that game. Diluted juice would be my first choice, but you know your child. You know what your child will drink. Whatever you can do to increase fluid. If you're having a pooping problem, it's time to just hone in and do what you got to do to get them to increase their fluid. Number 3, unfortunately, these days, a lot of people have a pretty sedentary lifestyle. I'm also fighting that battle. Not moving can contribute to constipation. Movement is so important, and I could do a whole video about that. But when you move, you're actually helping to massage the stool through your intestines. So if your child is having a pooping problem, make sure they're moving. Again, this is one that's pretty obvious. It'll probably come up pretty high if you're clicking through search results to try to find out what's going on. But activity is huge for keeping things moving. So a healthy diet with lots of fiber, adequate hydration, and movement. Those are going to be the big 3 obvious ones if you're trying to tackle constipation. Now we're going to level up to tier 2 of trying to figure out what's going on with constipation, because I know there are so many parents like me who are like, we eat lots of fruits and vegetables, my kids drink tons of water, they're running around outside all the time, and they're still not pooping. So let's talk about a few more obscure things that can contribute to a child being constipated. So number 4 on our list, and number 1 on the list of more sneaky causes of constipation, is simply a lack of maturity and executive functioning. When a child is being potty trained, we tend to think, can they hold it until they're on the potty? If yes, then they're ready to be potty trained. But there are actually a lot more layers to potty training, and one of the biggest ones is having the maturity and initiative to stop doing something fun to go and do something boring and go potty. Because pooping is not exciting if you're in the middle of a really fun game as a kid. The last thing you want to do is stop, trot your little self to the potty, sit down, poop, wipe your butt, pull up your pants, wash your hands. Like, that's a lot of steps for a small person who's in the middle of doing something really fun. Unfortunately, this can lead to a vicious cycle. So a child is in the middle of playing, they feel the urge to poop, but they don't want to. And so they just hold it in. Well, repeat that enough times and you've got a hard mass of stool that's blocking things up and going to be uncomfortable to pass. And that can just kind of turn into a snowball effect. So reason number 4 can kind of be summed up as poor initiative. So that's something to keep on top of. Any strategies that you can use to make sure that your child goes to the bathroom and relieves their poo as soon as they feel the urge, go ahead and use those. and try to do it as consistently as possible. I know it's so hard, but that can kind of cut off the vicious cycle from getting started. Number 5 centers around general discomfort with toileting. And this can be either emotional discomfort or physical discomfort. A lot of small humans, little toddlers, preschoolers, are sitting on big people toilets and trying to poop with their little legs dangling. And that's just not the way we're designed to poop. There are so many places in the world where it's still the norm for people to squat when they poop. We're meant to poop with our feet flat on a surface and our knees a little bit above our hips. And so when you put a little child on a big potty with their little legs dangling, that's an uncomfortable position to poop. And so I always highly recommend a squatty potty, or if you don't want to get a designated squatty potty, you can use any stool that supports your kid's feet and gets their knees even just a little bit above their hips. And that can help a lot with the postural discomfort. Emotional discomfort can sometimes come into play if a child is spending a lot of time in a place that's not their home, whether it's school or daycare or just being out and about. Plenty of adults are not public poopers, yet we have this expectation that kids are just going to poop on the potty whenever we want them to. And we need to recognize that some kids are just not comfortable with that. And there's not really an easy solution if a kid is in school for 6 hours a day or in daycare 8 hours a day or more. But if we have that understanding as parents about what's going on and that our kids may be experiencing an anxiety or discomfort that they don't necessarily have the words for, that can help us to empathize with them more and also give us more insight as we're trying to troubleshoot possible solutions. Number 6, some kids just have poor interoception. If you haven't heard the term interoception, that is the sense of our bodies that tells us what's going on internally. When you're hungry or when you have to go to the bathroom, that doesn't fit into the categories of sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch. Just like a kid can have a hard time interpreting the big 5 senses that most of us know about, some kids also have a lot of difficulty with interoception, with detecting or interpreting the sensations that are going on inside of their body. Sometimes it doesn't ping on their radar at all. You might ask them, do you have to go to the bathroom? And they say no, and then they have an accident. It's possible that they just genuinely weren't even aware. This is especially common if you have a kid with like an autism diagnosis or ADHD, or if they seem a little neurospicy, you don't necessarily have a diagnosis, but you think something might be going on. That's very common with those kiddos. So sometimes the sensation doesn't ping at all on their radar and they're just like completely lack the awareness that their body's telling them they need to go poo. Sometimes they might feel something going on internally, but they don't know what it is. Their brain hasn't sorted out what those different feelings and clues mean. And that's something that occupational therapy can help a lot with. Number 7, and this is another common one with the neurospicy crowd, and that's that some kids genuinely are put off by the feel of pooping, the feeling of stool passing and going into the toilet, maybe getting wiped. Like all of those things are just a lot and they don't like it. That is one of the more challenging pooping problems to address because it is so layered and it needs to be approached with such empathy, but at the same time, everybody has to poop. The poop has to leave your body or you're gonna have a problem. That's another issue that's common with the neurospicy crowd. Often seeing an occupational therapist or similar professional can be hugely helpful for those kiddos in getting okay with those feelings and being able to reach a functional level of using the toilet and doing it consistently so that you don't end up in that vicious cycle of constipation because you're withholding. Because kids are so concrete in their thinking, and a child can get stuck on the idea that pooping is uncomfortable for whatever reason, and they're just not going to do it. I had that issue with my daughter. She just didn't want to poop. She had decided, I don't like this, I'm not doing it. And unfortunately, as their parents, we know that's not an option. It's got to come out. For a child who's bothered by the feel of pooping, I want to validate that that is a struggle as a parent because there's not an easy solution, because it takes patience and it takes consistency, and it's more likely than not a chronic problem, and a chronic problem requires an ongoing solution, and it's usually not an easy one. And so you have, as a parent, you have my utmost empathy, and I encourage you to use whatever resources you can. if that's the challenge that you're tackling. Number 8, and the final reason or category of reasons why a child might not be pooping, and that's a medical condition. And that's something that you really need to have diagnosed by a pediatrician or a pediatric gastroenterologist. And if you are concerned about your child pooping, I do encourage you, of course, to bring it up with your pediatrician. Let them help you get to the bottom of whatever's going on. In conclusion, if you are a parent who's dealing with a child who won't poop, I just want to take a moment to recognize that you may feel like you are losing your mind, because I have certainly been there. Having a kid who won't poop is a unique and highly under-discussed challenge. But you are doing great. You are researching and trying to get to the bottom of what's going on, and you will. You will. It's a problem for which there is a solution. It might not be a quick or easy solution, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to get to the other side of it. So keep on being great. Keep on doing what you're doing. If you're looking for more tips on what you can do to help your child, I'd love to talk about some things that helped us when we were going through our constipation journey, but that's probably best addressed in another video. But if you would like to hear more, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're dealing with. Stick around and subscribe to the channel. I will see you next time. Sight, smell, hearing, touch, and taste. That was way more difficult than it should have been. So number 4 on our list, and number first,